Hey everybody, welcome to episode 45 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. On this episode, we talk about the difference between cheap and expensive coilovers, FSI oil pressure issues, Mark 7 engine noises, and blowing out your tires in potholes.
Tarek Jabali via YouTube says, so I live in Chicago, lots of potholes on the roads. I suffer with my original tires on my 2014 VW CC Executive. I already changed 3 tires due to damage and a rim. I want to have regular, more common type in size and disregard the look for the sake of driving without worrying as much as I do. Do you have any suggestions? I look forward to an answer, or please let me know if one already exists on your video list.
Okay, so Tariq, in regards to your issue of tires, so you didn't say what kind of size tires you have, so let's just make the assumption that you have either 18s or 19s. So on your CC, you have tires, obviously, if you live in an urban area, and more specifically in any of the northern urban areas like Chicago or New York, where the potholes are going to be massively huge, the likelihood of damage are going to be much higher in those places. The option you have would be to go with a smaller wheel and tire combination. It's not too big of a deal as long as you keep the same overall diameter. So there's a lot of calculators out there that you can look at to make sure you keep the same overall diameter, so your speedometer will be the same. But basically, if you switch to a 17 on that car, a 17-inch would be a 235/45 17 tire on a 17-inch wheel. I think the Phoenix wheel was one of the most common 17-inch wheels for CCs. That would be an option for you. I see that CC shouldn't have super big brakes, so you might even be able to go with a 16, although I'm not really sure because it depends on the brakes on the car and everything. But if you had 18s or 19s, you could jump down to 17s. The good news for you is you might be able to just trade straight up with somebody who already has 17s and is looking to upgrade. So you can always reach out to people on forums or local Chicago, because you're in a major metro area, local VW groups, and just say, find somebody who wants to just swap, and you don't have to pay anything. You just get different wheels and tires, and then you don't have to worry about it if drivability and reliability and lack of problems is your only concern and not aesthetics. So that would be my advice, and hopefully that works out for you.
Phil Hasher via email says, I've got a 2015 GTI, no performance pack, 6-speed, 4-door. The noise has been happening sporadically after about 6,000 miles through today, around 26,000 miles. I've posted a few videos to YouTube, also looking for some help and guidance from the VW community. The dealer thought it was a belt, so it was replaced, but did not change anything. They then maybe said the oil was low, added oil, which seemed to help, but only briefly, maybe for a week. I suspected perhaps it was the rocker arms or roller bearings on the belt wheel. Any help could be greatly appreciated.
Okay, so let's listen to the noise Phil's referring to. This is on the passenger side of the engine compartment, near the serpentine belts, near the alternator and everything else right on that side. So let's take a listen. So this noise sounds to me like it's obviously related to belts in some way, just based on the squeal. It could be something else, but here's the problem. Noises are hard to track down in general, and more specifically when you give me a video showing me the noise, unless it's a super common noise that I'm like immediately like, oh, I know what that is because I've heard that before, XYZ. I'm not going to really know. Diagnosing things like that require a lot more attention. So my first advice would be this. If the vehicle is under warranty, I would bring it back to the dealer. They can address this issue, and since it's under warranty, they should be the ones addressing it. If for whatever reason you feel like that's not what you want to do and you want to fix it on your own, I'm not sure why you would do that. Maybe you're heavily modified and you don't want the dealer to work on the car for fear of something. I'm not really sure why you would do that, but for anybody who's trying to track down a noise like this, let's go over a couple things about noises and tracking them down. So a noise like this, if it's related to belts, generally anything causing a noise, let's say it would be a bearing, either a serpentine belt bearing, or let's say you think it's the alternator and the pulley itself is the problem, or the serpentine belt tensioner, you're afraid that's where the noise is coming from. Here's how you would track down a noise. There's a few different methods, and this is something that I just want to have a little bit of a warning before we talk about this. This is something that most professionals would do, and you're going to be sticking objects near moving belts and moving parts and all kinds of other things, which can be really dangerous. So make sure you either know what you're doing, and if you don't know what you're doing, I suggest not doing this, because if you stick something in the wrong place, you may end up either causing damage to your car or even worse, getting hurt. So let's start with this. A common practice for a technician to find a noise would be to take a screwdriver like this one or longer, and what you would do is you can either place it on, let's say you think the alternator is a problem, you can place it on the alternator and you can listen to the vibration noise either to your ear, or you can even sometimes put it to your chin to feel if it feels normal. Now, without any context about what normal feels like, it's hard to really give you a complete and accurate picture of what that is, but basically you generally will hear the noise or even feel the noise through what you're doing. And you can go to different objects and determine if it's either louder or not as loud for each object that you're going to place it on, which would include the alternator, the tensioner, the AC compressor, anything that in those moving parts, to help it track that down. Also, another common practice would be to try to determine if it was a belt noise. You can actually remove the belt while the engine is running. Well, not while it's running, but remove the belt, run the engine, serpentine belt, not timing belt, keep in mind, and run the engine to determine if the noise is coming from the serpentine belt at all. Then you would move on to individual items in the engine compartment to determine where the noise is coming from. You would either use something like this, that screwdriver I mentioned, or something like this, which is a automotive stethoscope. Normally it would have, I just grabbed this out of my toolbox real quick. It's missing the piece at the end. There would normally be like a little ball that has a pointy thing like this on it that gives you a little bit better ability to hear noises better than a screwdriver. Regardless of what you do, tracking down a problem requires work. Again, I've said this a million times, and I'm probably going to say it a million more times. This is why technicians exist. This is why they're paid money. This is why you have to pay for diagnostic, is because things take work and it takes expertise to diagnose problems like this. So I would suggest, if it's under warranty, try to get that addressed. If not, you can follow these steps that I've talked about and hopefully track down your issue.
Abe Wilder via email says, I'm troubleshooting a 2008 Passat Comfort with a 2.0T FSI engine. I recently had a tune-up done, which included a timing belt, water pump, tensioner, thermostat, cam follower, and O-ring. All of this is replaced and is working properly. I am, however, getting the warning engine oil pressure off message on the dash. I checked the oil and the engine has the proper amount and is running smoothly as normal. I have an oil pressure gauge and I am wanting to do an oil pressure test, however I do not know where to connect my gauge in this particular engine. Any help with the error message itself or helping me locate where to connect the pressure gauge would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, Abe, checking the oil pressure. Checking the oil pressure on pretty much every VW, and I assume this is probably true on most cars, is always done at the place that you would remove the oil pressure switch from. On all VW and Audis, pretty much for the most part, that is always by the oil filter housing, and on the FSI that is no exception. I actually found someone who did a write-up on how to replace an oil pressure sensor on an FSI. It was on an EOS. I'll put a link to it in the description where you can check that out. It has pictures and it's pretty thorough. The one thing I'll say about it is the guy took apart literally the whole front end, core support, radiator, all that stuff off and swung it out of the way to access the oil pressure switch. That is not even remotely necessary to do this job. You should be able to access it. You should be able to access it other ways, but I guess that worked for him, so whatever. In regards to checking it, obviously you want to check it, make sure that you have solid oil pressure. The one thing I'll say, which is super unfortunate with FSIs, is as some of them have oil pressure issues over time, The oil pump on an FSI engine is a balance shaft assembly on the lower part of the engine. This is a pretty big unit. You can take a look at this picture here. That'll show you that, and then we'll link to an oil pressure or oil pump here where you can check that out and get more details and see more about it. That is a really expensive unit because it is balance shaft assemblies and everything all together. So replacing that is going to be a pretty expensive proposition. Before you go through and replace it, if you find to have an oil pressure issue, which most likely, if you have an oil light coming on like that, first of all, you shouldn't drive the car. But second of all, if you have an oil light coming on, you probably have an oil pressure problem. Now, what the cause of that is a whole different story. But I would start by, if you're not sure, once you determine you have an oil pressure issue, I would drop the pan, try to check the oil pump pickup and make sure it's clean, and make sure it's not clogged or anything causing it to not allow oil through it. Maybe even pull the pickup off, clean it out, and then reinstall it, put new oil in it, and run it again to see if your issue persists with your oil pressure problem, assuming you have one. And then go down the route of worrying about replacing the oil pump, because again, that is a super expensive ordeal that can get pretty pricey pretty quick. Oil pressure switches, I think, are one thing that people replace in hopes that that will fix their problem oftentimes when they run into issues like this. Most often they're not, although, you know, just like anything else, an oil pressure switch could go bad. So I'll link to the FSI oil pressure switch here where you can check that out as well, and hopefully that resolves your issue.
Reginald Little via email says, interested in this product, and I understand that it's cheaper is not always better, but what is the real difference between $500 coilovers and the $2,500 set? I want to save money, but I don't want to ruin a brand new car. It's 2016 GTI S with 14 miles on it, completely stock.
Okay, so this email was sent to us, and what he was referring to was a coilovers for Mark 7. So he linked to the coilover category on our website, which I'll link to here, where you can check out the coilovers we offer for Mark 7s. What he's referring to is the disparity between the lowest end version we offer and the highest end version we offer. And we actually can offer higher versions, but we don't list them on the site because it's so exceptionally rare that people would be interested in the super high end versions, which would be remote dampening and stuff like that. So what is the difference between a $500 coilover and a $2,500 coilover? This is going to be something that is probably going to be debated maybe in the comments about what I have to say about it, but here's the deal. When you buy a cheap product on any automotive thing, if you're buying the cheapest, you can generally assume that most often, if you're comparing a cheap version to a expensive version, and one of them is either not a well-known brand and one of them is a very well-known brand, especially when it comes to automotive parts and performance parts, one of them had a lot of engineering and R&D that went into it, and one of them probably had none, or next to none. So what you get when you buy the lowest end coilover, which would be anything in that $500 or $600 range or below, especially when you get into older models, the coilovers get cheap fast. What you're getting is something that fits the car. It will lower the car, and it won't ride terrible. Its ability to make the car handle better and have the proper R&D done to make sure it's perfect for the application is probably questionable. It's perfectly fine. It's not like it's going to, explode on your car and just going to fall off, but it's not going to be the same quality as in the next levels up. When you go into the mid-level coilovers will often have a little more R&D to them, much better quality overall product, with more thought put into them. So on our site, a mid-range coilover would be something like ST suspensions, and they're owned by KW, and they are a lower line version of KW coilovers. KW would be in the upper tier with companies like H&R and Bilstein. as well as KW would kind of be the top three that would round out the premium brands for VW and Audi coilovers that you would find. The coilovers he's referring to for 2,500, we offer two different Bilsteins for that car. One of them is going to be the ones that we put on our car, which would be the PSS, which is their entry-level coilover, and they're going to be super great quality, super great handling, and just overall awesome coilovers. I have them on the car I daily drive, and I'm super happy with them. I would recommend them to anybody who is interested. I'll put a link to the coilovers, the Bilsteins we have on our car here. But more specifically, the ones he's talking about are the $2,500 ones, which are coilovers that are made by Bilstein, have not only adjustable height like a coilover normally would, but they have adjustable dampening. Adjustable dampening is something that I don't recommend for most people because most people have no clue what to do with it. Adjustable dampening gives you the ability to dial in your suspension really great for somebody who is either looking to track their car or partially track their car or something of that nature. And the reality is, I don't think most people have the skill set to even properly dial in a suspension that has adjustable dampening. So, you know, a lot of people there's some kind of mid-range coilovers that seem really great because they're like 32-way adjustable coilovers for less than $1,000. And that sounds really cool because you have all these features that expensive coilovers have for a lot less. But the reality is, what you're doing with that information, first of all, I can't really say good or bad about the quality of those. You would assume that a lot less R&D went into that went into obviously something like a Bilstein product. And keep in mind, a lot of these kind of mid-range coilovers, depending on what they are the same coilovers just rebranded. You know, we could go to some suppliers overseas and get them to brand our own coilovers that look exactly like those 32-way adjustable ones that you're looking at. So that's not something we do, but that leads me to believe that very little R&D went into it. If we could have our ability to slap our name on it, there's probably not a lot of R&D that went into the thought of that specific product. So, but let's not get too far off subject, because to me the focus is buying a 32-way adjustable coilover or any adjustable coilover that has adjustable dampening without the proper skill set, or now this is the other option, or you're going to pay somebody to set up your suspension properly, which if you want to go down that road to have everything dialed in exactly how you want it, that's an option. But keep in mind, obviously, that's another expense tagged on to that. So for most people, I personally recommend just a non-adjustable coilover that's going to be a better quality. And you know, everybody has a different levels if they can afford it. If you just want to slam your car on the ground, maybe the lowest end coilover is fine for you. If you want something that's going to be a little bit of the best of both worlds and you want to make sure you have a better quality, maybe the mid-range is there. For me, I would recommend, if it's in your budget, to buy a top-tier low-end coilover. It's going to be the best thing you're going to find for a daily driver, and just overall, whether that be H&R, KW, or Bilstein. We recommend Bilstein, but that's going to be the best bang for your buck when it comes to suspensions, and hopefully that answers your question about coilovers.
Eric Selmba via email says, "Hello, I have a 2012 GTI with around 70,000 miles, and I have this squeaking noise when I start the car from a cold start. Then it goes away, but after driving for a while, I just don't know if it could be the PCV valve or a leak. Thank you." Here's a video of the noise.
Okay, so let's listen to the video that Eric sent over. Okay, Eric, so like I said earlier, identifying noises on video is super tough, but I can tell you this. The noise that it sounds like to me from that video does not sound like a PCV, squeal, or a leak of any kind. That sounds like a metallic noise to me, and that's a little bit concerning. So I would definitely suggest first to get that looked at by somebody who can help you address that, because my fear is that it's timing chain tensioner related. I hope it's not. I hope it's not timing chain tensioner related because obviously of what that indicates, but you should definitely look at that. I'm wearing the timing chain tensioner shirt we had made. If you're not aware of the timing chain tensioner problems, check out this article here where we have info about the premature failure issue on those timing chain tensioners, the parts that need to be replaced with it, and then we have links to all the kits that we offer for that at each different level for replacing that. But if that is your noise, then you will need to address that ASAP, assuming that nothing has happened yet. If it's not your noise, I'd really recommend having somebody diagnose it. Noises is something that you can't really try to cheat the system or skirt trying to have it diagnosed, because there's just no way for me to offer you really actual advice on that specific noise. Thank you for watching episode 45 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your Volkswagen Audi questions. If you have any comments about the questions answered in this show, be sure to leave it in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it. Oh yeah, shopdap.com too. VW parts, accessories, performance, shopdap.com. Go there.